That was perfect timing, Benjamin. That was Did you guys hear that? Benjamin's, what is that from? Hey, everybody. Welcome to Generally Irritable. My name is Erica Reddick. What is it?
Fairy tale.
Fairy tale?
Yes.
It's some anime sound. All of my husband's sound effects on his phone, like notifications and things, are from anime. What was the other one that it was for a while where it was like, and it was like, it scared the bejesus out of me every time his phone went off. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. That is not what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to just talk for a little while and make up some stuff because that's what my good husband, Benjamin, told me to do. You guys are going to hear me talk about him a lot. He's like my co-producer. Apparently what the podcasters do when they go live is they start out their show and they talk for a while and they get everybody to start watching. But I feel awkward doing that. I feel like I should be doing like a jig or have like a skit to do. So we're going to work on that. Go ahead and comment below and tell me what our opener should be. What should be the opening segment of the show before we bring the guests on. So tell me in the comments. Okay. In all sincerity, though, we're here today. I'm super excited to be joined by Anisa, Lamberton, and Matthew Strong from Vermonters for Good Government. It is an organization who is explicitly, or whose purpose is to educate Vermonters on the consequences of adding abortion to our Constitution, and why that would be a problem, and basically blocking Prop 5. So I was just giving my husband crap. Oh, and of course, hey, you guys, the plow guy is just now telling me as we're going live that he's on the way to the house to plow the snow. So, Benjamin, can you text our tenants and tell them that they need to move their vehicles? Oh, good Lord. I'm going to write their names down. Well, I knew this was going to happen, you guys. I knew this was going to happen. I come here, come entertain my people while I write stuff down.
I don't know how to entertain people.
Okay, Joshua may not be saved in there yet. I think he's a 717 area code.
You don't want to be giving people.
We have a new roommate, you guys. Nobody, this is not his name. Well, that's what it is. Text them, tell them the plow guy's almost there and they need to move their cars. Okay, we're going to have a real conversation. Seriously, we're going to talk about Prop 5 today and why it's not good for Vermont, why abortion, and why reproductive rights really don't belong in our Constitution. So we've got two folks from Vermonters for Good Government here joining me. And without further ado, let me add Matthew and Anisa to the podcast. How are the two of you doing this evening?
Doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Excellent. I am super glad to have both of you here to kind of be the voice for the opposition to Prop 5. I feel like one of the things I'm really hoping that we can address today is it's ran in such a way to make it sound very innocuous. Like, it's like, hey, you just, freedom. Okay. And it's really very deceiving. You good? Okay. So I want to get into some of that, why the intentionally vague language. If you have any input on that, I'd like to discuss that. But before we get into all the nitty gritty and the details, ladies first, because I'm a traditionalist. Anisa, would you share with our viewers a little bit, just take a couple minutes to introduce yourself, your position with Vermonters for Good Government, and why this topic is so important for you, why you're so passionate about it.
Okay, thank you, Erica, for having us here. I am a spokesperson for Vermonters for Good Government. And I like the name. I think the name is appropriate because that's what I would like to see. I would like to see government that creates policies that protect all of us. And if we do not start with the absolute smallest, that voice that cannot speak for itself, then it's very difficult to share that voice and have others to be taken as valuable by our government in policy. And so I started my journey with this topic a number of years ago, and I was a pro-choice individual. And one of the things that I did, I was part of an organization, a group that went around the state of Maine and taught about safe sex and using, condoms and dental dams and having. It was at a time when we really needed to share, and everybody was on the alert because of AIDS. And since that time, I learned about what I was teaching and what the statistics show, and how those the idea of go out and be with anyone and everyone, and how that has failed us statistically with our STD rates and so forth. But beyond that, I became a person who was against abortion, but for civil rights and for the rights of children. And that was something that happened to me through the process of experience. And I just a short version of that, I had an abortion myself when I was a pro-choice person. And I needed more information. What I heard, I met the abortion doctor, the abortionist, at the time that he showed up between my feet when they were in the stirrups. And the first thing he said to me was, "I think you are further along than we thought." I did not have the information that I needed. And since that time, when that happened, there was no discussion. And all I was done was, they told me to breathe because I started hyperventilating. And that didn't help. It didn't help that I had damage from that I had preterm labors. And Erica, I went on to a time when I decided I wanted to have children. And during the end of my first trimester with my first pregnancy, it was a twin pregnancy, and I started to bleed. Went to my doctor, and she did an ultrasound, and there on the screen in front of me was 2 sacs, and one sac had a beating heart and the other sac was bleeding. So I was able to see that there, between 9 and 10 weeks, that there I could see that my child had a heartbeat, that my child was something that was of value. And that started my journey. And I've had other experiences that I can share with you, but that started my journey.
Yeah,
and that's why I care.
When you realize that it's not just a clump of cells, that it is a human being, in fact, in your womb. That must have been so traumatizing, Anisa. And I just want to say thank you for being willing to share your story and educate women and men and families. As much as the feminist movement likes to try to silence men and say that they don't get to say, we really need to educate everybody on life, biology, science.
Yes, and I think we all know it. We have been led to get into our camps and dig into a ditch and entrench ourselves so firmly that it's seen as a violation of your team if you don't listen and you don't pay attention to. I mean, we've had ultrasound for years, and we know that child is there and moving, and it doesn't make sense that we can see on social media, gender reveals, and all sorts of things. We know
No,
what
no, Anisa, it's only a baby if you want it. Okay, it's not
Yeah.
a baby if you don't want it. Remember, okay?
Well, I think here's another, Erica. Here's another experience that I will share.
well, wait, hold on.
Okay.
So put a pin in that. Definitely mark that because I want to get back to it. But I want to make sure we get Matthew introduced.
Sure.
At the beginning here, speaking of how guys are not allowed to have an opinion, Matthew, what makes you think you get an opinion? No, I'm totally kidding. But no, share with us a little bit about your story and why you're so passionate about this one.
Yeah, I've been following Vermont politics for a long time. I've been involved in some ways, doing lots of writing and research and analysis of various topics for over a decade, and finally had an opportunity to get more involved in an actual advocacy manner, and just jumped at it from multiple standpoints, specifically because of how bad Proposal 5 is, what Article 22, the proposed constitutional amendment to the Vermont Constitution, if Proposal 5 passes and goes to Vermont state voters. It is a horrible train wreck of a policy, legislation, process. Any way you look at this, it's really bad for Vermont, and it's really bad for Vermonters. And as someone who is extremely passionate about our state and about our rights in general, even behind me, I've got the Bennington battle flag and the Declaration of Independence. So I am extremely passionate about this state. My family actually goes back supposedly, I'm not 100% sure, but supposedly the very first brick home built in Vermont was a strong that I am a direct descendant of. So it's been a while that we've been around these parts.
I didn't know we were having Vermont royalty on the show today.
Yeah, a brick house. I'm not going to sing the song. I want to. My entertaining instinct is to sing the song, but I'm not going to.
Don't make me do it.
Don't make me. So, but for me, the idea that this is a good idea by the people who want us to believe that this is a simple, easy, good idea that is necessary and needed because of these horrific attacks on Roe v. Wade coming from other states and potentially with the Supreme Court, that we have to. This is a necessity that we have to do this, and that there is no other option, and that this is the easiest and best way to deal with this issue. For me, it's like, let me get involved, and I'm ready to go.
So one of that argument, let's just start with some of the maybe we can start with some of the false statements being made for why we need this. Let's talk about some of those arguments, because you just mentioned one of them, that if the Supreme Court abolishes Roe v. Wade or overturns Roe v. Wade, that somehow now the world is going to end. Do they not know how federalism works, and that Roe v. Wade actually federalizes the abortion conversation, and that overturning Roe v. Wade literally will have no effect on whether or not you can get an abortion in the state of Vermont?
Yeah, and there's actually two very good points there. One that you mentioned is that Roe v. Wade, if overturned at the Supreme Court, would actually have zero impact. And I'm going to say that again, would have zero impact on...
Yeah, zero. Nil.
Vermont
None.
state law.
Yeah.
And second, Roe v. Wade, because of how far this agenda has been pushed along by advocates of Prop 5, it's really important to understand that the main argument is that this is to protect Roe v. Wade if Roe v. Wade has an issue at the federal level. Roe v. Wade was specifically designed to have abortion be safe, legal, and rare, and be capped at 16 weeks.
That's so. It sounds like from what you're saying that Vermont's law has already gone well past that.
Correct.
So the federal government basically said all states must allow up to this point and with these parameters. So they inserted themselves into states' ability to decide, right? And they said you have to at least allow this.
Yep.
And so again, in the state of Vermont now, what happens in some other states where people are less keen on abortion, they have had restrictions come up and they are looking at passing restrictions. But I think are the people who are for this just counting on people being like not understanding how the law works?
Absolutely, and that's one of the main issues and that's the reason why this organization exists, to try and educate people who would otherwise say publicly to their friends, neighbors, relatives, I'm pro-choice. I think that a woman's right to choose is paramount, and therefore this should be a main plank of any candidate, any public policy in Vermont.
Okay, got it.
And so, but what most people in Vermont don't understand, and it's what the proponents of Prop 5 are taking advantage of, is that very few people understand the ramifications of what is currently existing on the books of Vermont state law, and then two, what Prop 5 would do if it is passed and it goes into effect.
That's one of the things that I found very fascinating. You said that a lot of people don't know what the current law in Vermont is. And Anisa, I'm wondering if you've had this same experience where when I tell people that abortion is allowed up until the point of birth, and this is Vermonters, I say Vermont has allowed abortion up until the point of birth, and and unborn children don't have personhood status. So if you kill one, you can't get any kind of a murder charge for that. People have no idea.
I would agree. People had the Bennington babies. Babies.
Would you tell that story, Anisa? Do you know it?
Well, yes. In Bennington, there was a woman. I'll leave her name out, but there was a woman, and she was pregnant with twins, and she was hit by a driver who was under the influence of drugs, and those children both died. Wow. And that person was prosecuted for her drug offense, but not for the death of those two babies that were so wanted and loved. And so if anybody wants to learn more about that, just look up Bennington babies and you would be able to find out more about that.
Well, and go ahead. No, please.
One of the things that there is Robert George, a professor of jurisprudence from Princeton University. Mm-hmm. He said that people on both sides of this debate know that reproductive autonomy, that this is a debate over abortion, but they know that reproductive autonomy is publicly understood to be a way of referring to an unlimited abortion license that is elective abortion permitted through the entire 9 months of gestation and pregnancy up to and including the process of birth. And so when people I believe think, no, we have limits. Certainly we have limits. Certainly if a man beat his girlfriend, or if a woman beat her girlfriend and her pregnancy was lost from that, a wanted pregnancy, that there would be no punishment for that. I don't think that they understand that.
They don't.
I don't think that they recognize that we have so few regulation of abortion. They are self-regulated in Vermont, as I understand, and that if you go to a nail clinic or a hair salon, you would probably see more laws on the books than you would.
So when you say they're unregulated, what can you say more about that? I'm thinking about a lot of the like labor certifications or whatever. Like if you're a certified, like you said, like a CPA or a lawyer or a stylist or whatever, they have to register with the Secretary of State. I would think that there'd be a similar registry of like abortion doctors or whatever. No? Or like, how does that work?
What I'm specifically speaking about is that if you look at our books, age 57 is what's out there about abortion. And if you look up, just this past week, my family and I were looking up animal cruelty. What are the animal cruelty laws?
Yeah.
You should see how everything is broken down about what you can or cannot do for, a feral animal or a pet or what, including.
I see. So like animal protection laws and
animal protection
if you
laws,
come across an egg of an animal and you kill it, you're like going to go to jail, but you can kill an unborn baby and that's fine.
And I think most people think that everyone that does all abortionists are MDs, and they're not. That
they're
every
not?
woman that does abortion, no.
Really?
Not MDs. No.
How? That seems like, isn't that that's a procedure that you can have hemorrhaging and have very bad complications.
Right, and I agree, which is why I think it's so important for women that abortion facilities should have. These are some of the things that have been objected to in other states, that an abortionist should not have to have privileges at a hospital. Well, I think they should, because there should be absolutely no delay in where you're going to go, and that your doctor would be able to follow you in your care.
So what kind of medical training in the state of Vermont, I don't know if you guys can answer this question, what level of medical training do you need to perform an abortion, if not a doctor?
I believe nurse practitioners are able to do, and I can't tell you below that.
Okay. That's really interesting. If anybody watching knows the answer to that, please put that in the comment section. We should look that up and find out. I'm going to write that down.
Well, and in addition to that, there are no health and safety standards for abortion facilities. So,
you mean like how as a landlord I have to the slats in the staircase can't be more than like 3 inches wide because somebody might get their head stuck in it? You mean health and safety regulations like that?
Yes, or even sanitation. And basically, there's no inspections. This is part of.
Wait.
This is part of H57, which was passed in 2019.
Wait, back up. What do you mean? So I keep making references to other areas of life where the things that you're saying abortion clinics don't have to do, we have to do, right? Like whether it's getting professional certifications. Now, like, again, as a landlord, like the rules that you have to follow to make your place up to code are ridiculous in some ways. And then every restaurant you get, and I used to work in the food service industry. I mean, if you don't wash your hands or you get, somebody finds a cockroach in the building, oh my God, the world's going to end and you're going to get marks off. What do you mean that they don't have, do hospitals and other doctors' offices have inspections?
Oh yeah. There are massive regulations for hospitals, doctors' offices, sanitation, and safety standards, health standards, all of that. How they handle medical waste, how often they clean surfaces, all of that.
So then how is it possible? It's not like, abortion clinics must follow the rules same as a this size doctor's clinic or a hospital, or there's literally nothing?
Well, I would believe if they're in a hospital such as UVM is going to be following hospital regulations, and that's where they don't want us to call it late term abortion, but the abortion of fully formed, viable fetuses,
Yeah.
that would take place there, and they would have those procedures in place. But this is what we mean. This is why Vermonters for Good Government is asking for us to simply have a conversation about these issues. There are things that we don't know that we would like to know, and everyone who is involved in our state, all voters, all citizens, need to understand what they're actually voting for. And women, we want women and we want children and we want families to be safe and to have the information that they need to make these very important decisions. Let's not run away from that. Please, as a woman, I don't want anyone to put me into the position of a child who isn't capable of understanding the information. Give me the information. Let me have that information so that I will fully understand. And there is so much into this bill that even goes beyond abortion, that the information isn't being released about, and we're not having a chance to talk about because they are pushing this through. And what I think one of the things that we can safely say, we want good government, and good government means let's take the time before we change our Constitution, before we do that, to fully understand the implication of what we're doing. And right now we don't. And I can tell you that Senator Jenny Lyons was asked why abortion wasn't put into this wording. And she said that we felt that, and this was 2019, we felt that reproductive liberty includes more than that. And it will allow for the Supreme Court interpretation going further on those things coming up in the future.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So she admitted that it was intentionally vague.
Correct.
To allow an oligarchy to decide what it means.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, it's really a critically important thing to understand that Prop 5 would enable Article 22 of the Vermont State Constitution. It is a single sentence. It does not mention the word abortion or women or woman. And it is designed intentionally to be vague. As Anisa was just pointing out, it is a means of opening a lot of other doors in a very simple and misunderstood manner.
So right off the top, okay, I already I'm looking at different ways I could interpret it if I were a Supreme Court judge. Since the Supreme Court doesn't actually care about the Constitution and they just rule on things and make illegal things legal. That just happened. That in Vermont, but that's another conversation. If I have ultimate reproductive autonomy, then I'm a dude and I'm just going to go have sex with whomever I want. And I don't care if I get you pregnant. I'm not going to pay child support because I have reproductive autonomy. I'm not responsible for the children that I create from the act of... Yep. I don't know what we're allowed to say on YouTube and stuff also, anymore. We might get banned for this whole show. I don't know.
It's really important to understand, too, that I think the opposite is true. That because, and this is something that if you consider yourself a feminist and a pro-choice individual, it is really important to understand that what Prop 5 will do, because it says an individual's right to personal reproductive autonomy. It does not say woman. It does not say abortion. Because of that, men could theoretically, because this will all have to be filtered through the court system.
Wow.
Men would have the same right in my legal, unlicensed legal opinion to say I have the reproductive autonomy to reproduce, and therefore either I'm going to sue a partner or former partner to carry a baby to term or to terminate a pregnancy. And as a person, that would be a violation of my constitutional right to personal reproductive autonomy. And therefore, from that standpoint alone, if you're a feminist and you're pro-choice, Prop 5 should scare you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. I didn't even consider that.
Women need safety legally. They need safety in their healthcare system. And this is why we need good government. Vermonters for good government. We are for policy that helps women and helps children and helps families. That's what we need.
Well, and if you have a constitutional right, and see, this is what I think a lot of people don't talk about either, is what a constitutional right means. So a constitutional right in the United States of America or Vermont is supposed to be something that you have the right to just for being born a human. It is a right that you get for being alive. It is not a privilege that you receive that must be provided and paid for by another human being. So when you say, I have a constitutional right to reproductive autonomy, are you also trying to say you have a constitutional right to have your birth control paid for and your abortions paid for? Like, what does that mean to them? Are they thinking it should just be like, nobody should ever suffer the consequences of sex, and therefore it's free abortions for everyone and free contraception for everyone? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, I do think that, first of all, one of the things she said, we have a right to life. Okay, we have a right to life. And in the Vermont Constitution, in Vermont law right now, the way I understand it, it's you have a right when you're born. But we all know that science has far exceeded that. And I want to show you this. This, if you can see it, I don't know if you can, it's a pamper. And this pamper is about 2 inches wide, about 3 inches tall.
Oh my gosh, that's small.
And this is a Pampers diaper that is used for babies in the NICU. This was used for a 22-week little girl.
Wow.
Okay. So we are doing surgery in utero. We have doctors and NICU nurses these are their patients. And so we're talking about the patients of a whole genre of medical personnel. Okay. And that's who we need to protect. And until we understand that and say, yes, we recognize that there are 2 bodies here. We have 2 patients. We have 2 citizens. And we, in our state, we are putting precedent over on abortion versus live birth. And that's something that will not fare well. I think every parent can look at their child's classroom and think about the children that are missing there.
Yeah.
But it even goes beyond that. And in testimony on Prop 5, Norman Smith, who was serving Vermont Supreme Court Probate Court Oversight Committee and Probate Court Rules Committee, one of the things that he said is that the reproductive rights are not limited to abortion. They could include human cloning for reproductive purposes, gestational surrogacy trafficking, meaning in vitro fertilization and then followed by human embryo transfer, and after birth, the handing over of a born human child in exchange for payment, trafficking in human embryo creation, designer babies, and the word autonomy is not defined in the proposal, as he said, and that could undercut criminal probations related to the age of consent or sexual assault of a minor girl who became pregnant while with a person over the age of 18. I mean, I'm talking about we need good government to keep this away from our citizenry, because this is not good policy.
That is so, and I bet, let me guess, when you say stuff like that, when you let people know, hey, here are some of the things that could come down the road as a result of this. Do they call you guys crazy and like, oh, nobody would ever do that? That's crazy. How could you think of it? Like, do you get a lot of pushback from that stuff?
Well, that's the reason I say this is a lawyer who studied under a Chief Justice from the Vermont Supreme Court. He went to the Boston University School of Law. Mm-hmm. If this is his interpretation, I'm not a lawyer. If this is his interpretation, I think we need to listen to that. It
means, hey, there are places that all this nonsense happens. And if you say this is what this means, it means all of these things can happen here.
Yes. Well, when Jenny Lyons says we need this to be vague
on purpose,
it will cover whatever should happen in the future.
That is not good government. That is not good government.
That is not good government. And I think we need to. They're saying out loud what they're promoting. We just need to listen and believe them. I believe them.
Well, and it's interesting. You just said we prioritize abortion over live birth. And that is really demonstrated not just in Prop 5, but in the fact that we give $1.5 million, almost $2 million to Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics. Vermont taxpayer dollars, $1.5 million go to fund Planned Parenthood, and $0 goes to fund pregnancy resource centers. And so, when I hear legislators say that they just want to make sure people have a choice, I'm disinclined to believe that, because you're not actually demonstrating that you want people to have a choice.
Yeah.
So that's really a bummer.
Well, another. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Anisa.
What I was going to say is that this also is putting out it's going beyond the voter. And according to a bill analysis by the Bioethics Defense Fund, they said that because the personal reproductive autonomy is not defined, that the ambiguity creates where it's going to go to the Vermont Supreme Court, and that it will be through legislation that this will be determined, which will undercut the very point of putting the amendment to a vote by the people.
What were you going to say, Matthew?
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but you're looking at if this becomes a constitutional right, which will then be determined what falls under that constitutional right, in for the courts and then future legislative sessions, what are Vermont taxpayers going to be on the hook?
Oh my God! Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, like, my brain just exploded.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's important to realize that, like, all of these moments that you're having, like these moments. Yeah. This is why I wanted to get involved. When I saw all of the ramifications and it's so important to understand, this is a single sentence, just a single sentence that is added to the Constitution. This is just simple and easy. It's necessary and needed. And when you look at all of these ramifications, all of these wait a minute moments, it really becomes crystal clear that this is a horrible piece of legislation, a horrible process that very few people in Vermont know about it, and that it's going to have ramifications into the future.
Yeah.
That we don't even know yet. And these are the things that we're talking about.
You can't even imagine.
That we do know, that are being dictated to us by experts who have looked at this with their expert opinions and decades of experience in healthcare and legal issues, Supreme Court decisions, healthcare regulation, and they are the ones saying it's not just me in a basement somewhere saying, "Hey, this is a good idea, guys. I'm gonna go have some more popcorn." That's not what's going on. These are legal experts, scholars
Yeah.
We're telling us that this single sentence is a really bad idea.
Well, and at a time when we know more and more about the science of the unborn, you know, when we're seeing babies born at 21 weeks surviving, and, you know, when you know, once we started to, this was the thing that I think was so frustrating to me. You know, for our viewers, we were talking a little bit before we came on the live broadcast, and I just commented on how hard I had to work at staying ignorant about pregnancy. You know, we have biology class, right? And we have animals that have babies and things like that. But we really this is the thing I was like, I don't know if I'll say it, but I really think that the public has been brainwashed. When so many people believe that a baby in the first couple months is just a clump of cells, is really just astonishing and wholly untrue. You know, we know that the heartbeat starts with, you know, 8 to 10 weeks or something like that. And is that right? Is it 8 to 10 weeks?
Yes.
So 8 to 10 weeks. The baby has its own DNA, its own blood type, its own circulatory system. It is its own wholly contained person. It just gets nutrients from its mama, basically.
Yes.
Everything, but like all of its personhood is a separate person.
Yes.
But we've dehumanized the unborn so much that we call it a clump of cells. Does either of you have any insight into how that started? Obviously, you know, the 70s and Roe v. Wade and whatever, but it used to be, Matthew, you started with this argument that it was supposed to be safe, legal, and rare. And now it's a clump of cells, it's not a human being, and screw you for telling me that I can't do what I want with it. What happened to get here?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, and I think Anisa has good thoughts on it as well. But from my perspective, I think a lot of it is a pushback against the science, that it's as science increasingly shows us the reality of pregnancy, of unborn children. I think that is where a lot of the pushback comes from. That it is an attempt to normalize and to just set aside what would be considered, an increase of scientific knowledge.
That is crazy. What do you think, Anisa? What's your take?
Well, I can't say when it started, and I can't. There are some, I believe, that think that this was a propaganda machine that started a long time ago, and I want women to have equal pay and equal rights, and I know that there are more young women graduating from high schools and colleges and matriculating on now than ever before, and that is a wonderful thing. But I do believe that they have been sold a rotten bill of goods to think that the only way that they can be prosperous is if they deny a part of themselves, which is the ability to be a mother. And
Yes.
we have seen, many women, like sports figures, running in the Olympics when they're pregnant and coming back after they've had children and running to show that this is not something that should be the end of your life. I mean, that's a ridiculous. It's not empowering at all for women.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, and I think that women, I'm empathetic. As I said, I was pro-choice, and I can remember years ago sitting, and I don't even remember what the topic was, but there was an article in the paper or something that Bill Clinton had done that I felt had pulled back on my rights to abortion. And I can remember looking at the paper and just weeping. And I was so upset and so angry. And so I know that there are some women that are still there. They're still at that place. But when, as I said, when I saw my twins and I saw the beating heart and the non-beating heart, and then a number of years later, I miscarried. And I miscarried a child at about 15 weeks, and I held that child in my hand. My doctor was really wonderful, and she allowed me to do that. And she placed that child in my hand, and I saw its little hands and little feet and little nubs of fingers and little nubs of toes.
Wow.
And so I had heard the science and I had heard the clump of cells, and I realized this is a human being. You don't need to tell me and what it is or what it isn't. And I think the more that we have women put at risk by having abortion through the mail with the abortion pill that is not going to be regulated, they're not going to, that is going to be a difficult thing. We're going to have women who are going to be aborting their babies into containers in their own homes, and they are going to see that. And I think we are looking at real trauma, because that is a very difficult thing.
Oh yeah.
And
well,
my heart aches for what we're going to be doing to women and children, which is why we need a government that is willing to grapple with these deeper, more comprehensive questions and realities for women and families.
Yeah.
We don't need to say, oh, we just need to sign this off and it will all be good, because then we'll be waving our team flag. I don't want to wave a political flag. I don't want to wave a team flag.
Yeah, this isn't about that.
Let's care for women and
Yes.
keep them safe. And that's not what we're doing. And we need good government to do that.
That's right. Speaking of good government, I'm really excited to have on today with me Matthew Strong and Anisa Lamberton talking about their fight against Prop 5, their organization Vermonters for Good Government. If any of our viewers have any questions, feel free to go ahead and write them in the chat. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and write those down. We'll read them on the air. We'll ask our guests, especially if you have any specific questions about Prop 5. Now's a great time to ask those, and we'll get those to our guests. And I really just want to second what you just said, Anisa, and that is women have been sold a bill of goods. That is the reality. Like you, in my youth, I had an abortion. Nobody said to me, hey, Erica, you have another choice. I know you think that this is the end of your life, but it's not, and oh, by the way, later in life, when you're in your 40s or in your late 30s and you meet the man of your dreams, it's going to be too late for you to have babies. And I really, the deepest regret that I have in my life is not carrying my children to term and making my career my priority over building a family and waiting until the point where my body, real talk, people don't want to talk about that. I'm 43. We've been trying for a year and a half and I'm not getting pregnant. My hormones, I'm in pre menopause or whatever. You have no idea when your body's going to stop working. And people are like, oh, Jennifer Aniston had a baby when she was 50. And I'm like, yeah, she's also rich and everybody's different. So but we as women, we get convinced that we have to go to college and we have to have a career. I've got the rest of my life to have a career, but I can't go back and have babies. I can't get that part of my life back. And the fact that we would demean women and tell any woman that if she wants to have a family and all that, that's a bad thing, and that working a corporate job, slaving away for some other butthole to build their dreams, that's more important than having a family? Like, who, like, what?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna. It's like, it's the thing that I'm most regret and most bitter and like am mad that I fell for it.
And
the pressure.
It's something,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's something that as people who are trying to wake up Vermonters to this reality, it is something that we need to understand, that these are difficult decisions. There are. I fully expect that there is a relatively small number of people who do this without any consternation.
Correct.
I am sure that there is the majority of women dealing with this very difficult issue struggle with it. It is not easy, and many, I'm sure, wish that there was another way, and for whatever reason they do not feel that there is another way, and are making this decision based on the circumstances around them, that they feel powerless, that they feel that there's no way out, or whatever the case may be. It's important for us to understand that this is not something that women are doing easily and without a lot of thought, and without a lot of either pain in their life or struggle.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, we need to be empathetic and to come alongside them and say, there are resources, there are options, and there are ways that we can help.
Yep, exactly. I like it. This is good. Okay, so I want to make sure before we get too late in the game here, what are, if each of you wants to pick one or two things, what are two of like the one or two craziest things about H57, right? The law that got passed in 2019. If you want to say a couple of the things that you think are the most nonsense that people don't know are laws in Vermont, or that's what this law did, right? So like we talked a little bit about, people don't know that it's to the point of birth. People don't know that now babies don't have personhood status. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that people should know that is just like outrageous?
Well, I'll just speak up and I'll say, we don't know. We don't know how outrageous this is going to be. And that's the issue. We simply don't know, because we ask the questions, what does this mean? And they tell us that we're going to find out in the future. It's sort of like pass the bill so you can find out what's in it.
That's crazy.
And the real thing that I'm very concerned about is the impact on minors. The impact on minors, whether it's consent laws, whether families are not going to be able to help their children. And again, it's not just about abortion. I was at a college a year or two ago where I got to hear one of these people promoting Prop 5 talk to the college students about how they might just want to sterilize themselves. And when we understand that there are drugs, there could be cross-hormone therapies, there could be sterilizations for our college students, for whatever reason, if they decide, I want to be able to have as many partners and I don't want to have to use contraception, I want to do this for the environment, I don't want to ever be a parent.
Well, and now prostitution is legal in Burlington. So, when we start making more permissive laws about things like that, and then you add this on top of it, then, I mean, that is, oh, good Lord, my brain just hurt. Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. And when this is a constitutional right, these are the things that parents are really going to need to pay attention, because of what their children are going to learn in school. And there's an organization, Vermont Family Alliance, that is specifically looking at the impact on minors and parental guidance of minors.
Because Did they take away parental notification in H57? Isn't there, like, is there, do you...
We didn't have parental notification before age 57.
So can a 16-year-old go to a Planned Parenthood and get an abortion without a parent in the state of Vermont? Can a 14-year-old?
At any time during a pregnancy.
Yeah. And so what I want to say is, if this bill, if they really want to protect women and girls, they would include things. If a 12-year-old is pregnant and goes for an abortion, there would be some kind of regulation to find out who
impregnated that child.
Yes.
Like, what if the kid got...
Can't tell the parent. Lord. The parents. I mean, who's looking after this girl, or after she has this abortion? Who's looking after her health? What if she continues to bleed and she doesn't tell anyone?
Okay, this is the stuff I said I was gonna try.
You asked this crazy thing. The crazy thing I'm trying to say is, Vermonters for the Common Good is trying to alert pro-choice and pro-life people that we don't know just how far-reaching this could go. Right. Because they've set it up in a way that it has no boundaries.
Yep, that's Vermont. So now you guys just had to change your name, right? You just said Vermonters for the Common Good. It's Vermonters for Good Government now, right?
Vermonters
Nope, that's okay. I just want to make sure we don't confuse our people. Yes, yeah, no, that's good. But that is,
and just to briefly talk about that, our first public operation. We sent out a letter to 35,000 Vermont households. We had a cease and desist letter within 4 or 5 days of that letter being delivered to Vermont households. Now, there's another organization, which is the parent organization of the United Way in Vermont, and their name is slightly similar. So, out of 35,000 letters that we sent out, 2 people called them and said, "Hey, is this you?" So 2 people out of 35,000 thought the name was similar, and so now the law firm that sent us that letter is a very high-profile law firm with a ton of resources, and this organization, the parent organization that sent the letter, coordinates with literally almost every single nonprofit in the entire state. And nonprofits is the way that a lot of politicians have a job to then be able to go and afford to go to the State House. So it's a highly orchestrated attack that we feel is completely politically motivated. Yeah. Our name was trademarked. The state of Vermont, the Secretary of State registered our name.
Oh, so the Secretary of State didn't think it was a problem.
Exactly.
Huh.
So, and Erica, what I want to say is, I think it's a wonderful blessing in disguise. I think Vermonters for Good Government, it really speaks more precisely to what we're looking at, and it clarifies who we are and what we're looking at. We're not here to take sides. We extend our arms to pro-choice and pro-life individuals alike, young and old, of all races, backgrounds, genders, and come to us, because this is not good government, and it will not serve our government well. It won't serve our people well, and into the future, the ramifications of this are unknown.
That's right. And I, it's funny, Matthew's comment about the Vermont nonprofits and then those people having enough money to run for office. We need to make that another show episode. I don't know if you guys remember, I think 7 days, it was Digger or 7 days, which I normally would not give props to because they're fake news, but one of them did an article about nonprofits in the state of Vermont, basically saying that we have like the most nonprofits per capita in the country, and they all make six-figure salaries, and they're mostly paid for by Vermont tax dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yep.
Yeah.
and y'all don't care? Like nobody thinks that's a problem? Like
Yeah.
the state auditor isn't looking at that? That is within the purview of the state auditor. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said I was going to.
Which is another reason why this isn't just about abortion. This is about civil rights, human rights. This is about the welfare of those who are the most at risk.
Yeah.
And this just puts them more at risk than they already were. And those people who benefit from it will continue to benefit from it through the power and the funding that they will receive off of the money funneling through the system.
Well, and I think with so many things that are going on these days, it's going to be women and girls and children who suffer the consequences for this. They're basically going to be guinea pigs for these policies, and it's like, and a whole generation gets damaged by this, like, oh, this new belief system we want to try out, and then we go and we damage them, and then we're confused why we have problems later.
Yeah. And actually, and then to go back to the question about H57.
Yeah.
And there's two things that were for me absolutely insane.
Yeah.
One is the reason why they passed H57 at all.
Okay.
Because they already knew what they were going to put into Prop 5. And because it's so vague, they needed some legislation for courts to then evaluate Prop 5, Article 22. And so H57 is intentionally what courts will use for legislative intent for determining what Article 22 will mean in the real world. So it shows the level of organization and strategic thinking and analysis and coordination and planning. This is not just a quick, simple thing. Let's just throw together a constitutional amendment because Roe v. Wade is in danger. This is a multi-year organizational and strategic planning initiative.
Well, my understanding is that a lot of organizations or movements like this actually will start in Vermont. They'll work out the details because they basically can do whatever they want in our legislature because they have a supermajority, and then they provide a framework that's then used for other states and municipalities around the country.
Yes, we're a petri dish.
That is what I've heard. I mean, when you look at, the conspiracy theorist in me, like, where's my tinfoil hat? Okay. But when you actually start digging into, I won't name names, but when you start digging into where the money is coming from for some of these organizations, these people, these political campaigns, and you realize that it's, millionaire, billionaire people influencing legislation in states that they have nothing to do with. What are you, why you, sir, are you putting your money in the state of Vermont? You have nothing to do here. Like, whether it's the gun laws, the abortion laws, fill in the blank. Safest state in the union with the least amount of gun crime. We definitely need a bunch of gun laws all of a sudden, that's not by accident. And those parent organizations then come to Vermont and they push their stupid crap on us. So,
what I would like to say, that aside, when I was listening to testimony for H57, I heard people come forward, and it seemed to me they were coming forward to say the things that needed to be said in order for justification to pass the bill, such as in one session, a woman was asked can girls make this decision, or do they have the mental capacity? And she said yes, that 12-year-old girls had the mental capacity to make this decision about whether or not to abort their child. And anyone who knows anything about brain development knows that the frontal lobe of a young woman or a young boy does not develop at 12. And so their whole risk assessment is off. I heard people say that women needed abortion so that they could have jobs, they could have security, and it would be a solution for domestic abuse. And abortion is not for domestic abuse.
Hold on.
We need better government.
Anisa,
better government solution.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. A 12-year-old can't smoke, can't drink, can't permit to sex oh my god, consent. Thank you, my brain just farted. Like, what do you mean a 12-year-old can make a decision? What are you talking about? A 12-year-old isn't allowed to legally sign a contract.
Right. As far as I know, I had to sign papers for my daughter just to have their ears pierced. So I understand, and so it's like a disbelief.
And this is the stuff that people don't. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the stuff people don't realize. Like I think that if Vermonters realized, that their 12-year-old daughter could go get an abortion without having to ask permission, they would be horrified.
Right. And when you're talking about everyone working together, on the other end, when people who were against age 57 were testifying, I saw our legislators sitting, and one in particular knitting, not making eye contact, knitting during testimony. And this was something that I thought, all right, they are making a visual statement that I am biding time until you leave so I can do what I wanted to do anyway. And Vermonters, I want Vermonters to have their voices heard. I know that Calvin Coolidge has ingrained in all of us, to just sit back and be silent cow and to let everyone, do their own thing. But
not everybody's doing that, though.
Would want to watch the Titanic movie if everyone was throwing the children out of the lifeboat so the adults could get in.
Yep.
So please, Vermonters, please speak up. Let your voices be heard. You have common sense, Vermonters.
Well, and see, this is the thing and this is what I've been on everybody about, You know how many, and I bet you guys get this too, I have tons of people who will message me privately and say things like, oh, thank you so much for what you do, or when I ran for office, oh, thank you for running for office, I'll vote for you, but I can't have your yard sign out because, then people will think I'm a racist, and I can't donate to your campaign because then somebody will see it on the Secretary of State's website and they'll destroy my business, like fill in the blank stupid excuses. And it makes me angry. I'm like, I don't appreciate your support. Like, don't message me and tell me that you're going to vote for me, but that you're too much of a coward to stand up for yourself. Because that's how we've gotten to this position in the first place. If everyone is too afraid to say what is true and what is right because you don't want to hurt somebody's little feelings and sensibilities, then you get to the point where they put Constitution they put abortion in the Constitution, and they have abortion up until the point of birth, and that's what happens.
A lot of this is because of the decades of political organization on the far left in Vermont. They've created an atmosphere that their opinion is the majority, and therefore anyone who opposes them is lesser than.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job at the State House. I have spent a lot of time at the State House. They do a really good job of minimizing other opinions and downplaying anyone who has a different opinion, and they marginalize you and they mock you. And to show you this, I mean, this is how bad it really is. Only 3 senators voted against Prop 5. And that should scare a lot of people, that there was only 3 people who felt strongly enough to stand up and say this is wrong. And it's something that is really quite inexcusable, and I want to commend the people. And only 38 or so people in the House voted against Prop 5. So it's something that I commend those people who voted against this.
Yep. Everyone else needs to have someone running against them this year.
Yes. Yep.
Every other person who voted for this needs to have I don't even care. I'll vote. This is what I told somebody. I don't even care. I'll vote for a Democrat as long as they can do math, because apparently the Republicans can't either.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you think of the Republicans being conservatives. Look, you can be a pro-choice Republican if you want to, but you cannot think that putting abortion or reproductive autonomy in the Constitution is a good idea. You can't.
And the other thing that we haven't even gotten to is conscious protections for our people working in hospitals, our nurses and our doctors. And why don't do me, Anisa, say a little bit about that, and then we're gonna wrap it up for the night. I want to talk to you guys for like 3 more hours, but I'm supposed to try to keep it to an hour. It's so hard. Okay, but say a little bit about the conscious protections, and then I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to just, tell everybody where they can go support you guys. So say something about that. Okay. My thought is no one should be in favor of Prop 5. If you are saying to me that you trust your doctor and you trust your nurse, if your doctor or your nurse says, I cannot in good conscience deliver your child through abortion, and that could mean dismemberment abortion, it could mean whatever way. If I cannot participate in that for whatever reason, my heart will not allow me to do that. Scientifically, I cannot do that. This right in our Constitution would supersede their conscience rights. We have no protection for our medical personnel in Vermont, and this amendment would put the right to abortion before anything else. And we already have a shortage of healthcare workers, and that will get worse because people go into these professions because they want help and care. And as I showed you, these children are someone's patient. And you would be asking them to destroy that patient. There are 2 bodies in abortion. A woman does not abort her body. She aborts the body of another person. Another person.
One, didn't that happen at UVM? One of the UVM doctors lied to a nurse, got her scrubbed in for a procedure. And my understanding from nurse friends is that once you're scrubbed in or assigned to a procedure, you can't back out legally without like some repercussion on your license. Do you guys know about that story? I don't know enough to say more than I just did.
I do, and it's something that I'm actually working on a commentary that I'll be sending out for publication about this.
Okay.
And it is it's exactly what you said. It was someone who everyone knew her moral objection to it, and she said the doctor said it was to do a post miscarriage procedure. She walked into the room after scrubbing in and realized that it was going to be an elective abortion. And the doctor said allegedly, and this was actually quoted in The Atlantic. They wrote an article about this. The doctor said, "Please don't hate me." So the doctor intentionally
lied to her,
misleading this nurse. But the nurse felt she could be fired because of the policies from the hospital. UVM has a policy that says medical workers can object, but only when they are not short-staffed.
What?
They are now spending. They're going to spend north of $50 million this year. They're on pace for possibly more than that for traveling nurses.
Yes.
So that means
almost the entire hospital is staffed by travelers. And it's not just the nurses, it's the surgical techs, it's the scrubs, it's the everything.
Yes, but as Matthew is saying, this is going to create a situation where they are continually understaffed. Wow. So you put those two pieces together and they cannot object.
Wow.
Without being terminated almost on the spot. And with no legal recourse if that were to happen.
Right.
Because of their legal obligations or whatever. See, this is why, Vermonters for Good Government exists. Because that is not good government. This is what I'm going to do a little plug. I'm going to do a little plug before we go. Okay. And the reason I just felt really inspired because we're talking about good government. Benjamin and I wrote a book. It's called Reasons to Trust the Government. It's a very short book.
I had a feeling.
Anybody, it's in all sincerity, it is available on Amazon.com. It's $9.99. Look at the preview before you buy it. It is a joke. It's meant to be funny. So make sure you look at the preview. But Benjamin and I, we wrote this book because I just said, when we look at history, all of the bad stuff that has happened has basically been the government or corporations and government colluding together to do nonsense to the citizens. And this is another example of it. Like, this is a corporation, Planned Parenthood. This is not a medical care provider. This is a corporation using the levers of government to facilitate their business, to be able to do probably some of the more wild elective procedures so that they can keep and sell body parts. I would imagine, like, if you have unfettered abortion in places, well, now you can go do that wild crap that you hear about that is true, that people don't know about and don't believe. So, reasons to trust the government. Prop 5 is another reason that everyone should be suspicious of the government. If your Vermont legislators believe that there should be unlimited reproductive autonomy in the Vermont state constitution, and they're not concerned with the fact that it's so vague, they in fact made it vague on purpose so that it will get argued out in the courts, that is not good government. That is a reason to not trust your government. So that's my pitch for our book, and also why everyone should be a libertarian. For God's sake.
Well, you'll notice, Eric, and I'm really interested in your book. My painting here, which I did myself, is a Rothko knockoff with libertarian colors, yellow and black. I consider myself a libertarian, which is a constitutional person who cares about the process, who cares about that our laws are applied equally to all people. What Prop 5 does is anarchy, and not the good kind. It is going to be removing government from the equation totally.
Wow.
While also empowering lobbyists such as Planned Parenthood with our taxpayer dollars.
That's crazy.
It is a combination that is absolutely mental. Absolutely mental.
I mean, we gotta give him a slow clap for being able to come up with that, because I just, this is what I imagine, and again, this has come up a lot lately, but there have been all these terrible atrocities that have happened in history, right? You hear all of these stories throughout our history of human beings mobbing up on some group and demonizing them, dehumanizing them, and saying that it's okay, that they're the reason for all of our problems, right? Like women. You know what? The reason, Anisa, for all of our problems is this terrible womb we've been burdened with, and the fact that we can create a baby inside of our body, and then feed the baby with our body. Like, it's not that that's a superhuman power. That is a terrible burden. Oh Lord. Okay, I'm going off now. Okay, I gotta bring myself back. Okay.
Well, we need to be the voice in the wilderness, where we help people to come back, to not fall that far away, so that everyone knows. And I believe that those who are have voted against this, one of the things, the power of the pack is very powerful.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to elicit, people to come and say, all right, get into this fight, when we're telling you how horrible it is when people call you names and they come after you and all of that. But we need people who are willing to speak up, and to also contact their representatives and say, this has gone too far. We do not want this. This is something that we need to have more discussion on. Please stop pulling the reins. Whatever you want to say, this is not good government, and we need to speak up and not be silent about it. And if you say, oh, well, maybe I'll do something or maybe I won't, no decision is a decision, and people will take this and run with it, and you'll end up and say, how did we get here? Well, this isn't the starting line. We're in the middle of the process now, and we need people who are willing to say, blow the whistle. Let's get the referee in and let's talk about this.
Everybody's gone
too far.
Yeah. And it's, it's scary at first to say something. And it is hard when people get mad and might call you names or whatever. But then I realized that my grandfathers and my uncles literally fought in wars, like literally were shot at, and like literally almost died, and like all I gotta do is have somebody call me names.
Yes.
And eventually, once everyone, if everyone who believed, they don't have to be as passionate about the unborn as we are, but if everybody who just could recognize how stupid this is just said, this is kind of stupid, like the power all goes away. The power comes from our silence. Yeah. And our unwillingness to just say what is true. Yeah. And so, if there are other people watching and listening, and they also want to say what is true, and they want to help you guys out, tell them the best way to donate to the cause, to reach out to help. What are your socials so they can find you and share your information? Give them all the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love and welcome any support. We now have hundreds of donors that are coming from Vermont, and we would love to have you on board in any capacity that you have, whether that's contacting your representative, contact your House rep. We're down to the final vote before it goes to the ballot in the general election, and now is the time. They have said that they are probably going to look into this as soon as they get back into session. It needs to happen quickly. Please reach out to your House representative and tell them to vote no on Prop 5. And then our website is vermontersforgoodgovernment.org, and you can look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. And we'd love to there are a couple different ways you can help out. We have a petition going. We'd love to have you sign up for that. Sign up for the email newsletter, and we are here to make a big difference in a short amount of time, and we can do that with your help.
I like it, and I put a really quick link. It's I've shared this link before, you guys. I have no idea about this organization. I really should look it up. I do not judge me or hold it against me. I don't know if they're good people or not. It's called, funny enough, Common Cause. Commoncause.org, and it's /find your representative. I put it in the comment section. So if you put in your address, it'll tell you who your city council representatives are, your house reps, your senators, your governor, and it gives you all the contact information for everybody all the way up to president. So from president all the way down to city council. It's a really great little link. Now we've got some of those links in the description. I don't know if did I get the petition? I got to double check. If that stuff's not in the description of the video already, I will add it. And, okay. Okay. What else? What else do they need to know, before they go vote? Okay, now this is on the November ballot next year, right? This is not on the town meeting day ballot. Oh, it's not.
So, and this is also a reason, and we didn't even get to the whole process. The constitutional process is, and that's fine. The process is it has to pass legislature in multiple sessions before and after an election.
Oh.
Both House and Senate. And then if it passes, it's 4 votes.
Okay, so this isn't done yet. I thought this was done and on the ballot next year. So we can still crush this thing before it goes to the ballot.
There's one more vote, but as I understand, they're planning to take that vote in January.
Oh, okay, then everybody, you don't have to write a dissertation, okay?
No.
You don't have to write Shakespeare. I'm against Prop 4.
Prop 5.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. Prop 5. I'm against Prop 5. Don't vote for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
period. Sincerely, Erica Reddick, my number, my address.
Yes.
Yep.
Pick up the phone. You can call the sergeant at arms. You can ask them to give a message. You can send email. Do whatever you can do.
Yes.
But please don't be silent.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to us, we were all a fetus.
Yes.
And look where we are now. All
Yep.
we need is time. And if there's anything that we've learned in these COVID times, we can give people time to help others. So let's give 9 months, shall we?
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
And also our second statewide mailing is going to be hitting mailboxes in the next couple of days.
Cool.
It will have a postcard to mail to your representative.
Cool.
It is going to the State House. I would love for every single one of those postcards to get signed with a little note on it and mailed back. And the State House has just heaps of notifications of postcards from constituents all across the state telling their House reps, yeah, hard pass.
All right. So everyone needs to be looking in their mail for a postcard from Vermonters for good government. Yep. Don't just throw out all of your junk mail. Look through it the next few days, the next week. Make sure
very prominently displayed. Our design crew is really good, and every post office person is going to be seeing our name for the next couple of days.
Yeah,
I love it. Well,
we need Vermonters. They're the heartbeat of this. So please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, I love it. All right. Well, I appreciate you both coming on this evening. Again, everyone, this has been Matthew Strong and Anisa Lamberton with Vermonters for Good Government talking about Prop 5. It's still in the legislature. They're voting in January. Get to your legislature, go to the comment, search for your representatives. If you don't know who they are, get their contact information, email them, call them, send in the postcard, talk to your neighbors.
Yes.
Talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, be willing to say what is true. Because it's not just your life that depends on it. It's literally millions of babies every year depend on you just being willing to believe what you just being willing to say what you believe is true. So on that note, you guys, you're welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hold on for me, guys. I'm gonna send us off here.